You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to meander through the humdrum, to live undetected, move without resistance. The atmosphere changed from the moment you arrived. The mood around you has changed. Those who operate in the shadows sensed it. They saw something in you that concerned them, not because you were weak, but because you had force that they could never hold. They spoke your name in places you'd never gone, and in circles you'd never traveled alone. They could alter the trajectory of your life. They gathered. They developed a strategy. They organized forces to resist you. But they overlooked one thing. They do not have electricity. Divine justice does not negotiate. Every thread they weaved in the darkness is unraveling under the weight of their own ambitions. The tables are turning. The balance is altering. And you stay unperturbed, because they never had the power to destroy what was meant to rise. They thought they could stop you. They thought they could weaken you. They thought they could take what wasn't theirs. And now they may see their own downfall unfold in real time. This is no coincidence. Your generosity symbolizes his riches. Be a conduit for his grace, and see his kingdom expand through you. The architects of their own doom seldom predict the coming collapse with total certainty. They built the foundation. They methodically plotted their strategies, sure that they could control the outcome. They were confident that they could influence their fate. However, the moment arrived, and the trap they prepared failed to capture its intended victim. It turned against its creator. This is the fundamental design of existence. Those with unknown abilities get caught in an unbreakable cycle. They don't merely create snares. They created a reflection. When they shot their deception outward, the glass fractured, sending jagged shards bearing their own intents rushing back at them. What they made still clings to them, unrelenting. The storm they unleashed has shifted course, its winds tearing through the corridors of their own minds. The specters they unleashed now wrap around their minds, whispering in voices that once gave directives but now plead for silence. This is no coincidence. This balances the weight of lost energy returning to the source. It was never a single moment, as accurate as possible. There is never an immediate reckoning. The alteration began with an unseen force pulling on them, a tightness in the air, a shadow on the edge of awareness. They mistook their strength for domination, believing they could use unseen forces to their benefit. However, what they clutched was never meant to be grasped. Darkness does not serve. It consumes. When they set it on another, it traveled to the nearest open door. The descent was sluggish. They mistook a whisper as their own. Then they moved with an unusual weight. They talk with an unusual tone. Their reflection no longer seems familiar. What they believed was mastery has evolved into ownership and the calamity they had prepared for. Another individual creates their own path. For what a man sows, he will reap. Galatians 6-7. There is a reason why the harvest is often so copious. You can't plant thorns and expect roses. You cannot toss poison and expect pure water. What are you sending out? Whatever you put in motion will eventually return to you. They felt they could rewrite the law, distorting the basic principles of divine order to their own ends. However, truth is not negotiable. Here's an old legend of a man who built a dam to control a river. He was confident in his ability to direct the flow of the water, make it serve his will, and comply with his directions. However, the river was never his to have. It wielded power that was older than his plans, stronger than his defenses, and more profound than his understanding. He had no notion that every stone he heaped and channel he pushed was only creating pressure till the dam failed. It drowns everything in its path, even him. That is exactly what happened here. They invaded territory that had never belonged to them. They wanted something they did not understand, thinking they could mold and shape it, use it like a tool. However, strength from divine sources is not a reward. It's not a property. It's a force, a living fire, and it burns through the hands of people who aren't authorized to hold it. They thought they could manage it. They were certain they could wear it. They felt they had control over it. Fire, on the other hand, doesn't care if it was taken with arrogance or in ignorance. It burns exactly the same. They never sought or strive to get simply strength. It was never just a favor. It was an inheritance, something made of anguish, faith, and steadfast perseverance, united by a cause beyond their understanding. They assumed they could have it without making any sacrifices. That's why it turned against them. A throne means nothing to someone who hasn't felt the weight of the crown. A sword is merely cold steel in the hands of someone who has never seen combat or strength. Power is a responsibility, not a blessing. For those who have never attained the necessary purification, the unraveling process began when they reached out their hands to grasp something that was never meant for them. Not fast, not everything at once, but piece by piece. They hadn't even noticed it at first. A sliver of doubt, a crack in their foundation, a weight in their spirit that brings their steps to a standstill. Their minds were agitated. It spread like a fire over desolate plains, undetected until it collapsed. They imagined they were strong enough to wield it. They assumed they could travel the same path you traveled without taking a single step. They failed to see that power without understanding is self-destructive. Strength without discipline results in chaos, and favor without intention is a curse. The very thing they intended to grab has turned against them. The power they thought would make them untouchable is really unraveling them from the inside out. And now they are only left with the consequences of their own choices. Because the fire that they sparked still burns. It consumes, it spreads, and it will not be contained. Adversity never sought for permission before it arrived. It arrived unannounced and unrelenting. A tide tried to undermine the foundation underneath your feet. It moved with whispers, treachery masked as devotion, and secret currents that slowed your progress. This was never arbitrary. The forces of evil do not resist what they already possess. They strike at what is beyond their reach. And you, unshaken, unclaimed, were perpetually beyond their reach. Something about you bothered them. They were unable to describe this presence. However, I was terrified. You did not demand recognition. You didn't express your strength. It was right there, woven throughout your whole being. That alone was enough to concern them. They aimed to fracture you, not because you were feeble, but because your climb was inevitable, because your presence disrupted the delicate balance they were attempting to preserve. However, they failed to grasp the essence of real endurance. You weren't being undone. You were being honed. Fire did not consume you. It molded you. Every difficulty motivated you to develop. Every betrayal whittled away more resistance. Each adversity served as a reminder that you were never meant to remain where they wanted you to stay right now. The same armies who gathered to watch you fall are now withdrawing in defeat, not because they changed, but because you refused. That is why they can no longer stand in your way. Their miscalculation was that they underestimated the weight of what they set in motion. They believed they could move unobserved and that their words and schemes would never come back to them. They were not aware of the ramifications of their conduct or the dangers they presented. Not everyone who takes up a handgun comprehends the fight they are joining. Many were only instruments, dragged into a conflict beyond their comprehension. They lacked both strategy and control over their own fate. They were essentially boats conveying weights, which they mistook for power. They never questioned what they had until it clung to them like a shadow that refused to go. At first, they were confident in their actions. They laughed. They may spy on it while believing they are untouchable, but nothing comes without a price. And now, the consequences of their actions are bearing down, unraveling them thread by thread. Their own hands betray them. Their own thoughts escape them. The forces they thought they controlled had crept into their own bones. Some people have already grasped this. You can see it in their expressions. The spark of discomfort, the desire for an escape that will never come. They desire to undo what was done to liberate themselves from what they had accepted. Unfortunately, this cannot be reversed. Their war was never really against you. They were confronted with something completely beyond their understanding. And now, amidst the rubble of their own building, they are left begging. They mistook your patience for weakness and saw your struggles as defeat. They saw the storms. You overcome your losses. You bore the weight of fights that might have devastated you. However, they never understood. You were never alone. Every effort to stop you met with resistance. Every emerging power was greeted with a greater challenge. Every time they tried to draw you down, something unseen drove you forward. Consider this a wonderful treat. I have brothers and sisters. Whenever you face different forms of problems, because you realize that putting your faith to the test leads to perseverance. James counted 1, 2, and 3. There's an old story of a tree standing in the middle of a field, devastated by every storm that passed by. The wind tried to bend it, the rain tried to drown it, and the weight of the seasons pressed down on its limbs. Nobody saw what was going on under the ground, however. Every storm made the roots grow deeper. Every drought led them to expand farther. Every effort, anguish, and force used to pull it down only strengthened it. Until one day, the tree was the only thing left standing while all else collapsed around it. The tree symbolizes you. They came at you, certain that they could shake your foundation. They dispatched opponents, betrayal, setbacks. I thought it would break you, makes you question who you were, weaken your resolve. They thought they could stifle your strength with obstacles. Distractions obscure your purpose. Adversity may help you take control of your future. However, they were unaware that every battle, attack, and attempt to pull you down was really strengthening you because you were not breaking. You were under construction. See? Some people assume that power is simply handed out, that strength is something you can take. You are welcome to borrow that information. However, genuine power must be acquired. It was fashioned in flames. What they expected to be your downfall turned out to be the catalyst for your transformation into something stronger. Every wound they intended to inflict on you became a sign of strength. Every attempt to hinder your path just helped you acquire clarity. Every time they thought they had you, you found a way out. Because this is what happens when someone is summoned. You don't break. You don't collapse. You don't fold. You experience a metamorphosis. They're unaware of what they've done. They don't comprehend that every plot, storm, and setback was like beating a hammer on steel. It did not weaken you. It tempered you. They built the fire, but you emerged triumphant. They sent storms, but you've learned to stand in the wind. They tried to pull you down, but all they did was give you the tools to climb even higher. People who believed they were stealing from you were really providing you with what you needed. They wanted you to fail, yet all they did was ensure your success. They thought they could tire you, but all they did was train you for a level they would never reach. Because they have never learnt the secret. Only those who make it through the storm will be eligible to get the prize. Only those who refuse to succumb, be broken, or give up may wield lasting power. And now you are moving differently. You have sharper cognitive ability. You walk taller. The fire meant to kill you has become the light that guides you. The trials that were designed to grind you down become a training ground for something greater. They thought they could stop you, but they set you in motion. This is why you weren't meant to fall. This is why no weapon designed against you can ever succeed. This is why, after everything is resolved, you will be the only one left standing. They wanted to know what made you special, but they never knew where it originated from. They mistook the outside for the inside, presuming that anything you were carrying may be stolen, that strength needed to be claimed rather than produced. But power without a foundation fails. A fool may see the shine of the ocean's surface and believe they understand its depths. They don't grasp the tides, currents, or the weight of what lies underneath. They reached for something, and now it's turned against them. The authority they want to wield is slipping from their hands, unraveling them thread by thread. They thought they could claim without making a sacrifice, take without earning, step into something that never existed in them. However, power comes at a cost. They never underestimated the breadth of their aims. It was an expenditure. They never saw it coming, however. For a short while, you may have had to deal with grief in a variety of circumstances. These have come so that the proven validity of your faith, which is more precious than gold and perishes even after being refined by fire, might result in praise, glory, and honor. 1 Peter 1627. There is a story of a blacksmith who spent years forging a blade. He didn't take shortcuts. He did not hurry the process. He recognized that true strength required both fire pressure and time. The steel has to be pounded, shaped, refined, not once, but several times, until it became unbreakable. But one day, a man walked in, saw the finished blade, and thought, "That is what I seek." He reached for it, certain that he could claim it as his own, mistaking its weight for something lovely and its edge for something simple to handle. But when he lifted it, he realized it wasn't just a weapon. This was something that had been earned, and your earnings cannot be taken away. That is exactly what happened here. They saw you standing steady, undisturbed by the storms, and overcoming obstacles that would have devastated them. They watched as the doors opened for you. Opportunities came your way because your presence carried clear weight. Instead of asking, learning, or going their own way, they tried to grasp it. They thought Favre was something that could be achieved without the procedure. They felt that knowledge might be worn without wounds. They felt that resilience could be learnt without undergoing the experience. But power is not a reward. This is not the title. It is a process of becoming. What you are holding was never given to you. It was constructed quietly, during the night of questioning, through the fires of grief, through the moments when everything tried to break you. However, they failed. Every scar teaches a lesson. Every difficulty has a purpose. Every challenge has refined you in ways that others may never comprehend. And that is why it was never theirs to claim. They were more concerned with the end product than with the process. They craved power rather than responsibility. They want the benefits but not the challenges. So, they came. They sought to siphon something that was never meant for them. However, power that is taken rather than earned cannot maintain what is built via shortcuts. It dissolves under pressure. What is disrespected will never exist. They have now been left empty-handed. They were drained by their own greed, weakened by their own shortcuts, because they did not understand the truth. What is formed in fire cannot be stolen by those who have never faced the flames. And now, as they want, you go forth, stronger, wiser, and unshaken. They see the implications of their own dishonesty. They thought they could take what wasn't theirs. However, they only demonstrated one undeniable fact. You symbolize something they will never be. But anybody who hears my words and does not act on them is like a dumb person who built his house on sand. Matthew 726. There's an old story about a man who wanted a crown but despised the weight that came with it. He saw the money, diamonds, and magnificence and thought they must be mine. But he didn't see the years of conflict, the nights of labor, or the sacrifices that shaped the person who really earned it. So he took the crown, placed it on his own head, and stood before the world as if he had accomplished something greater. When the storms came, the wind howled and the ground shook. The weight of what he absorbed crushed him because he lacked a foundation to sustain it. That is exactly what happened here. They imagined they could take something that was not meant for them. They observed your favor, your strength. You carried yourself with presence. They couldn't explain. Instead of growing, learning, and pursuing their own path, they sought to steal it. They took what had been refined in fire, tested in conflict, and polished through trials. But they overlooked one thing. Power cannot be worn like a cloak. It's something you become. They pursued power without restraint. They seek power without responsibility. They wanted knowledge without experience. But stolen power is a curse for those who did not deserve it. They thought they were taking from you. However, they eventually tired themselves. They thought they could equal your strength, but all they did was expose their own weaknesses. Because what is not founded on truth, what is not rooted in reality, will surely collapse. They took and took, certain that with enough effort, they might change themselves into something they were never meant to be. But now they have nothing. The same thing they were attempting to grab has slipped through their fingers, dissolving before their eyes like sand through an open palm. And here's something they didn't expect while seeking what you had. You just grow stronger. They thought they were draining you. They only validated what was already inside of you. They thought they could undermine you, but instead they revealed the depth of what you carried. They imagined they could deprive you of something they did not understand. However, all they did was to show that it was never theirs to claim. They are now standing amid the ruins of their own creation. They're now looking into empty hands, unsure where everything went. Now they're learning the most hardest lesson of all. What is not honored is permanently lost. They built their house on sand, and now the storm has come. And as others delve into what they've created, you stay serene, unshaken, and unconcerned. Stand on the rock that has always been under your feet. True power is never seized. It develops via connection with something greater than oneself. Strength alone is not enough. It takes intellect, dedication, and an aim that transcends selfish desire. What you carried was never about dominance. It was a preparation. Each fight molds you into someone who leads with knowledge rather than control. Those who opposed you saw their conflict as one against a single individual, unable to realize its magnitude. They were quite difficult. They interpreted stillness for submission. They mistaken pain for loss. But difficulty was never an indication of weakness. It involved the building of something unbreakable. And now the fact is clear. You did not wield authority. You became it. Whoever digs a hole will fall into it. If you roll a stone, it will come back at you. Proverbs 26 verse 27. There is a story of a man who built a cage with the purpose of catching something greater than himself. He founded the bar. He set the bait. He closed the door, assuming he had one. But he wasn't aware that he had built it too well. When he turned to exult, the lock snapped shut, leaving him the only one inside. That is exactly what is happening here. They prepared the trap, but they walked straight into it. They stacked the bricks high, thinking they were boxing you in, not realizing they were shutting themselves off. Every scheme, falsehood, and whispered conspiracy led to their own downfall. And now the weight of everything is crashing down. The walls are closing in, and the inferno they are living in is raging under their feet. They assumed they could go undetected. They felt they could exert influence without expense. They thought they could break you without breaking themselves. However, there is something they have never understood. Everything goes full circle. You can't create conflict and reap peace. You do not get to sow destruction and harvest blessings. You can't expect to walk easily after digging graves all day. The forces they deployed did not just turn around. They took root. What was designed to harm you has instead strengthened them. What was supposed to shake your foundation has caused theirs to crumble. And now they are stranded. At first, they thought they had control. They thought that their hands were steady. Their aims were sound. Their rigorous methods guarantee that the deception never succeeds. Illusions do not endure. And now the ground under them is shifting, and the ropes they once pulled are entwined in their own hands. They were so concentrated on controlling your outcome that they overlooked what was coming for them. It is not revenge. It is not punishment. It's all about balance. The rule that governs everything is not susceptible to manipulation. The order of the unseen does not accommodate human intentions. What they built now lives on via what they release. They are now carrying what they meant for you. They are now drowning in themselves. They laughed as they started the fire. They never believed they'd be the ones experiencing the flames. And while others scurry, scuffle, and seek an escape, you stay uninjured since you never had to fight back. You never had to pursue justice. You never had to alter who you are. The weight of consequence has already achieved what it was originally designed to do, and they are now obliged to face what they sought to hurl at you. There was never any need for vengeance. There was never any necessity for involvement. The mere presence of truth was enough to dispel the lies. They now sit in the world they made, entrapped not by your hands, but by their own choices. You were never tied by their fate, never linked to the conflicts they tried to drag you into while they wasted their lives in a war they could never win. You remained unharmed, untouchable. They planned to destroy your light. But genius cannot be stolen. They want to figure out your path. However, destiny does not bend to the will of the unworthy. They attempted to pull you down, and by doing so, you only ensured your own advancement. Justice does not need recognition. It doesn't beg to be seen. It moves exactly, repairing what was never really imperiled, realigning what was briefly interrupted. The scales have shifted. Their own actions have closed in on them. The upheaval they once controlled now dictates their every action. They tried to keep power, but they are now powerless. They crave for control. They are now directed by forces they once felt they could control. A tale has been written. The order was restored, and now they must face the repercussions of their own acts.